what I've been hearing them say over and over again is that they have been dedicating their life to their family, to their kids, and to other people. And they do that so lovingly, they don't know who they are anymore.
That's literally a description of our listeners. And this community just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I really believe it's because women struggle to find community and they feel exactly the way that you're talking about. And they just think it's just them, right? But when they hear that their stories are not unique, and there's this whole community of women out there that are feeling and experiencing exactly what they feel, it's like the lid comes off.
Do you see that that's something that women struggle with? Just giving themselves permission to go to Bali without their family. For a mom, if she has kids, to go somewhere really super cool without her family, it's not the norm, I think.
Welcome to Drinks with the Girls. Conversations for women over 40 around connection, change, and the power of female friendship. Living well with stories to tell. I'm Karen, and this is Lisa.
We are moms and solopreneurs stepping into our own, diving into real conversations about things that matter to women in midlife.
We're here to spill the tea on everything that affects women in their 40s and beyond. Topics like loss and grief, changing relationships, launching kids, menopause, and reinventing ourselves in midlife. We are here to tackle it all.
Connect with us through a blend of our lived experiences, our friendship, the memory of our moms, plus a collection of real stories, honest conversations, and engaging interviews that will make women over 40 feel seen and remind them that they're not alone on this journey called life. Let's go.
Welcome back to another episode of Drinks with the Girls. Today, we're going to be talking about a conversation that many midlife women experience, but may not necessarily have the words to put to it. We're going to talk about what it feels like to outgrow a life that we built that made sense at the time. And we're going to talk about the courage it takes to actually look at this and to choose ourselves in making a different choice, and how creativity can become a powerful tool during the seasons of transition. But before we introduce our guest, we're going to let you know what we're drinking. I am doing something I never do, and I'm drinking an iced coffee because I need a little pick-me-up, and water, as you know, hydration. Lisa, how about you?
Apparently not something that's strong enough. Okay, I am drinking my famous sparkle hops that I love. However, I have a shot of my homemade strawberry syrup in there, and it's delightful.
Delicious. You pour it in the can?
Oh, God, no.
Oh, there it is. How does this work?
Yeah, I put the funnel in there, and what I should have done is pour a couple shots of vodka in there because given the retrograde Mercury baloney that's going on. Anyways, what are you drinking, love?
I am keeping it classic with a glass of wine.
Okay. What kind of wine?
This is a Malbec.
Oh,
it's one of my
Malbecs are delightful.
So today we are joined by artist.
What are you drinking? What are you drinking?
I already told you. I went first. Coffee, remember?
Oh, that's right. Just shoot me. Just shoot me,
Cool.
please.
Definitely need. Anna, you had it right with the wine.
I know, I didn't get the info. I thought that we were all drinking something
Pouring
alcoholic.
more syrup in here.
Well, I usually drink something alcoholic.
I know, I heard your episodes before.
Yeah. Okay. Today we're joined by artist, retreat facilitator, and creative guide, Anna Beij. Anna's work centers around what happens when women reach a point in life where what once felt right no longer fits, kind of like those size 4 jeans. Alongside her visual art practice, Anna creates immersive retreats for women, which is super exciting, helping them reconnect with themselves through creativity, self-expression, and intentional living. So Anna, welcome to Drinks with the Girls. Let us know a little bit of who you are and what you do, and then we'll dive in.
Thank you so much for having me. I am an artist and retreat host. I am based in Austin, in Texas, and I've been working with acrylic paint. I do a lot of 3D high texture art pieces. And I also organize art retreats and art workshops for women mostly.
I'm super excited to hear about that because that's on our bucket list for 2027 is to do a drinks with the girls retreat. So,
Oh, okay.
So
Exciting.
tell us about your own story, Anna. Like, how did you get to this point where you wanted to, post experiences for women with the creativity key?
It is a long story. I've always been a creative person, and ever since I was a kid. And in Brazil, I started to study law and I was not following the creative path that I was supposed to. Then when I moved to the United States, I decided to kind of change that trajectory and start focusing on learning art and learning drawing and focusing on that. Then I started working with companies in Silicon Valley. I was doing team building activities, art focused team building activities for companies. And I decided that I wanted to, follow my dreams and one, travel the world, which was one of my dreams, and two, focus on my own creativity and my own art. So after working with all the corporate events, I decided to shut down that company. And me and my husband, we traveled for a couple years around the world. And I already had this idea of working with women. So coming up with the retreat idea, it was just a combination of many things that I'm passionate about: art, creativity, travel, and organizing creative experiences for people. So there was a lot of different passions that came together to form this idea of working with retreats.
So I think a lot of times women, and maybe men too, I don't know, but we focus on women here. When you go through life, and Lisa and I are in our late 50s, and so we've been through some things in life, and I think sometimes it's hard to recognize like what's going on. Like, have I outgrown my life? Do I need something that fits better, or is this just burnout? Or am I just, maxed out and overwhelmed? So what's your experience with the women that you work with? How can you kind of determine what's actually going on?
I feel like a lot of women throughout their lives, and this is something that I found out while I was organizing my retreats. My first retreats, they were focused on creative women, not so much on any specific age, you know, women. But what ended up happening just organically was that what I was offering ended up resonating so much with specific age, which is the midlife age women. And the reason why I think it resonated so much was because I was offering a week away from, you know,
they were like, bye,
yes,
see ya.
a week away from, their lives and their responsibilities and all those things that kind of keep you stuck, right? Because sometimes when you're living your life and you're dedicated to your family and you spend your whole life like that, sometimes it's a little hard to understand what you want next. So taking that time away, I feel like it really benefited women specifically in this, age group. And on top of that, I was also offering the creative aspect of the retreat, which, it was not only creativity that I was offering, it was reconnecting with your creative spark. And on top of that, learning about yourself through your creativity. So it was kind of something that was serendipitous that, this age group resonated so much with what I was offering. So I was not targeting them. I like to say that they targeted me. So, and that's how I ended up working with 38. So, like, I'm almost in midlife. I'm like very close. But the women that I've been working with are 40 plus, you know, and I feel like, you know, just them being able to step away from their routine and step away from all those things that they're used to, it just brings so much clarity to what they want next in their life. I don't know if I answer your question.
So
Oh,
did you,
absolutely.
sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it.
So I think what I hear you saying is you kind of built it and they came in terms of midlife women. What do you find are the themes that you hear most? Because obviously there's an artistic part of your retreats, but it seems like this midlife kind of identity piece that you're also developing as well. So what would you say the themes are that you mostly hear kind of come up?
Yeah. So, when I'm marketing the retreat and, looking for the people that are attending to my retreat, I speak to every single person that's interested. That's one step to be able to attend my retreat because I like to learn who they are. I like to see if what I'm offering is, what they need. And what I've been hearing them say over and over again is that they have been dedicating their life throughout, you know, their whole life to their family, to their kids, and to other people. And they do that so lovingly. But sometimes, later on in life, things happen in their life and that makes them feel so lost. So what I've been hearing is, stories, more simple, like just empty nesters, their kids left and now they had that identity connected to their kids being at home and taking care of their kids. Now their kids left and they don't know who they are anymore. All the way to like, very serious things like, husbands passing away or, cases of, you know, even like, violence in their relationships. And then like, there are very serious things happening or, you know, and I've been hearing these so many times. It's just throughout their whole lives, they've been dedicating themselves and their energy to their families. And then later on in life, something happens that takes that base and that foundation away, and then they feel lost. So that's basically like, in summary, what I've been hearing over and over and over again from women.
That's literally like a description of our listeners. Like the things that they're facing and what they're dealing with. And it's so interesting to me because as Karen and I, you know, we think of this as work that we're doing to build this community. We've talked about this before and that we just kind of like, hey, let's start a podcast. And then this community just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I really believe it's because women struggle to find community and they feel exactly the way that you're talking about. And they just think it's just them. Right. But when they hear that their stories are not unique and there's this whole community of women out there that are feeling and experiencing exactly what they feel, it's like the lid comes off. And we always joke that like if we could get, all midlife women together in this community that like we'd like power a nuclear reactor. I mean, it really it's pretty amazing.
It is true. And like that's the third pillar of my retreat. You have the travel, which, it's the cultural aspect. And then there's the creative aspect, which is the more, introspective, a part of the retreat. But then there is that third aspect, which is the community aspect, which is very important as well. So they spend a whole week hanging out and chatting with women that are going through similar things in life and they don't feel as alone. It's very empowering to know that, oh, my problems, the things that I'm going through, they are devastating, but I'm not the only person that's going through them. So makes you feel less alone. So it is very empowering, the community aspect of that.
And I think there's something so powerful about women being together and in a space where they feel safe enough to share their stories or share whatever it is that they're struggling with and just to be seen by other women. This sounds amazing. I want to go on one of your retreats right now.
Hey there, I'm Lisa Coricella McDowell, your midlife Pacific Northwest princess, here to guide you in the art of next leveling your life. I'm passionate about women's health and wellness in midlife, especially for moms parenting kids with unique needs like I do. I truly believe we can learn, grow, advocate, and care for the planet while taking care of ourselves and our families. And I'd love to help you do the same. And I'm beyond excited to tell you about my membership for maxed out mamas just like me, the Empowered Parent Collective. It's a space for parents to confidently advocate for their kids, build inclusive communities, educate themselves, and find balance and support along the way. To find out more about the Empowered Parent Collective, my classes, wellness offerings, parenting tips, advocacy resources, and exclusive Drinks with the Girls goodies, head to nextlevellifewithlisa.com. Let's survive and thrive in the messy middle together.
How do you, well, there's so many things going through my mind. Like one of the things that is going through my mind is, and Lisa and I have talked about this before on a previous episode, but my mom got to a point in her life when she was in her 50s and she just took off to Puerto Vallarta for a week. Like
my hero.
By herself. And we're just like, what? I was in high school. I think I was like 14 or 15 or something like that. But at the time, I'm like, this is so weird. Like, well, whose mom does this? Just goes on a really cool vacation by herself. Well, yeah, flash forward 25 years and I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I get it. I know why you did that now. So I just think, women giving themselves permission to even do something like that. Do you see, and I know that, the women at your retreats have given themselves the permission, right? Because they're there. But do you see that that's something that women struggle with? Just giving themselves permission to go to Bali or go, without their families. Because, I mean, that's kind of, for a mom, if she has kids, to go somewhere really super cool without her family is like, not rebellious, but it's not the norm, I think.
Yeah, totally. It is out of the box, for sure.
Out of the box.
Yes, a lot of women struggle with that. They struggle to give themselves the permission to take this time that they need, this time to nurture their own creativity, their own inner lives, and just plainly just have some fun and see the world and have experiences that are outside of their families. And what I've noticed is that it's so much easier for women to say yes to this experience when their families are supportive. So you have, sometimes two different types of, you know, family or people in their lives. What I noticed is that the ones that are very supportive, that they see the benefit and they're so excited for these women to have this experience and they say, yes, you should go. This is going to help you. And then there's the other side of the coin, which is the family members that kind of like guilt trip them a little bit. The ones that are more, a little less independent, I guess, or a little more insecure for a reason or another. I don't know why, but like those women, it's devastating. They feel so guilty to be taking this time for themselves, and I think it's heartbreaking to see that. But I think that what women have to think and what I've been seeing over and over again is that if you don't take that time for yourself and you don't fill your own cup, you can't fill other people's cup. It's kind of like the saying that, on the plane, you put your oxygen mask first so you can help other people. Because what I've seen is that, like, if women, they, prioritize their own needs as well as their family, they can take care and be there for the people that they love even more, with even more presence and even more love.
And that's the problem right there, is that we don't prioritize ourselves. We sound like a broken record on this podcast, but it's just, I don't know. It's hard. I do think that judgy voice in us really is pretty darn loud. So what are some of the themes that you find are, so we say, resonate with women that are trying to let go of some of these identities that once served them, but they're outgrowing and they're not quite sure where to go next?
What are the themes that resonate with them?
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about this with them in the retreats, like, talk to us a little bit about the journey that people go on in terms of kind of figuring this part out, because it's a big journey for sure. But obviously your retreats are a catalyst for that. And it sounds like people really respond to that. So
Yeah, so it is a journey in the literal sense and the non-literal sense, because like it is a long trip to Bali. So there are lots of things that have to align for them to make this experience happen, right? And I know that it's not a small ask to ask them to travel across the whole world for this experience. It's not always on them to decide. There are many other things that can influence their decision for the yes or for the no. So it's not only on them, but like once they say yes and they actually go, what I've seen is that there are many cases, but what I've seen a lot of the times that they arrive feeling a little scared, a little hesitant. They don't know if this was the right decision or not. They still kind of doubting themselves a little bit. So when they arrive, I try to be as welcoming as I can and, you know, try to remind them that they had to trust themselves to be there. So the fact that they are there, that means that they trusted themselves and they gave themselves permission to take this experience, to do this, to go on this trip. And throughout the retreat, we do many different types of experiences and workshops. We do picnics. We have a forced dinner that we do with, Balinese performances and dances. It's just like a lot of different experiences that sometimes they are not used to or they're never done before. For example, I took them to go snorkeling, and snorkeling is something that I am passionate about. I love snorkeling, and we saw some dolphins. We went swimming with dolphins. So and some of the women, they have never done that before. And just like, being there with them and holding their hands while they get in the water, just stepping outside of their comfort zones. And I've seen like people just change so much within that 1 week. And I know that like at the end of the week, they're always thankful that they actually did the experience, that they took that step. And they all also always leave with like lifelong friends, because once you spend a week having this experience with this group of women, you stay connected after that.
Talk about the creative piece a little bit in terms of like helping women reconnect with themselves, like with their desires and their passions and their wants. Because we talk about this a lot, and I think you touched on it a little bit. After decades, literally, of taking care of everybody else, they have forgotten how to take care of themselves, and they've forgotten, like, well, what do I want? What are my passions? Like, what do I want? This next chapter of my life to look like. So, talk to me about the creative piece and how that. And I'm imagining, because I haven't experienced it, but I'm imagining it would just kind of open things up for women. But how does the creative piece fit into all?
Yes. What I noticed is that women, they know who they are. They know like what they like. They just have to remember it. They have to like somehow rescue that from inside of their minds, right? So I have different types of activities that I do. I do women's circles to where we have, questions about things that are common that a lot of women go through, and then we go in circles answering it and just witnessing each other, witnessing other women sharing their experience and just like connecting with that. That's one thing that's very transformational. And some of the workshops, they are about connecting with Bali, with the place itself. So we collect natural elements from the island and we use them to create our pieces. That connection with the place, with the nature of the place. And then there is the everybody's favorite workshop, which is the combination of collage and poetry. So I came up with these two workshops together, and I worked with this poet from Bali. She's a friend of mine that I met when I was there. And I do the collage part of the workshop. And then the next day she does the poetry. So I bring a lot of, magazines, and we create a composition using images from the magazines. I usually, sometimes I like leaving the theme open. So whatever comes up, comes up. Other times I bring up a theme. So for example, you collect, you put it into an intention to create a piece about your highest self, for example, right? So all the images that will resonate, that will attract you, that you see, will be related to this theme. And you will create your composition, and the things that you're feeling, the things that you're thinking, the things that are coming up, the emotions that are coming up, the way how you place the images on the page, where you decide to position one image versus the other, on the page. That's all information. That's all information that we're going to be working with later on to create our poetry, right? But that's all things that are a reflection from your subconscious. Those are all, information that are coming from your subconscious. So we do a meditation and we stay present throughout the whole process of creating the collage. So we are able to observe all these emotions coming up. And then the next day we bring a collage, and the poet from Bali, she comes and she teaches us. So looking at our collage, you can create, a story, and we start looking at it and interpreting it and attributing meaning and symbolism and associations with the images that we used. And from those associations, that's how we create our poetry. And you just find out just with this process of collage and poetry, you find out so many things about yourself and about things that you were feeling that you just didn't put into words before, that you just never realized before. And these two workshops combined, they have been everybody's favorite in such a way. And, that starting to offer these into like smaller workshops, I'm starting to offer them into online workshops and also in person here in Austin for smaller groups, because I just want to be able to offer it to more people.
My name is Karen Shatafian, and I am a shameless coffee addict and empowerment coach for women, and my love language is authenticity. My mission is helping women unapologetically design a life they're in love with. Because what the hell are we waiting for? My website, KarenShatafian.com, has all my coaching packages and free offers like my midlife reclamation guide. In it, you'll find tools to help you decide how to create the most inspired and empowered version of yourself and your life. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram talking about ways women can show up for themselves after decades of showing up for everyone else. Join me as we throw off the shackles and live our best freaking lives. See the show notes for all the details. Cheers.
Talk a little bit about, I mean, you seem to know this journey intimately, but you talked about the fact that you're only 38, that you're just about hitting midlife, but you're almost there. But I get the sense that, the process of finding your own identity and rediscovering yourself is something that hits close to your heart. So I'm getting a little personal here, but talk about your own journey with identity and how are you bringing that to the work that you're doing?
Yes. So as I said, I was born and raised in Brazil, and I grew up very creative. I was a very creative kid. And my father was a very good artist. So he used to draw with graphite pencils. He loved doing portraits of people. And he taught me everything that he knew about drawing portraits when I was probably about 8 years old. And I fell in love with the process of creating the portraits. He taught me how to see the lights versus the shadows, how to measure the proportions of the face, how to try to do a photorealistic drawing. And as I started to get a little bit older, maybe like in my preteens, I was 11, 12, I was buying those teenage magazines and drawing my crushes, Leonardo DiCaprio. I was like just drawing portraits of him. And it was just my hobby. I love doing it. And it was the first time that I experienced the flow state that I didn't even know what it was. I learned about it later on when I learned the meaning of a flow state. I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was feeling when I was a kid and I was drawing. Anyways, I grew a little bit older. I became a teenager, and you know, as teenagers do, they start to try to fit in with their friends, and they try to get into a tribe. So I kind of forgot about drawing. I was not drawing anymore. I was not creating art anymore and forgot about that hobby and that passion that I had. And when it was time for me after school and I was going to university, right? It was time for me to pick my major, what I wanted to study. And I got into this government program and I got a scholarship. And I scored really high on this scholarship. So I was able to get into a very competitive school. And I chose to study law. In Brazil, law school is a 5-year program. It's a little different from here. So I chose to go to law school. And because I could, because, the scholarship allowed me to do that. And I thought it was, you know, a very safe choice. My family kind of always struggled with finances. So I was like, oh, this is my way out. You know, I'm going to be able to have a job and have a career. So it would be great. I started studying law and I hated it. I just could not connect with, what I was studying. It was just horrible. And I remember I told a friend of mine that I was going to study law. And she said, I never thought of you as a lawyer. And at the time, I thought that she was being rude. But actually, I think that she was seeing something that just wasn't seeing at the time. And my family was so supportive about me studying law. They were so proud of me. So I was happy to see them proud of me as well. But, and then I remember one day I was just feeling miserable studying a lot. I was like in the middle of a bunch of books. And all of a sudden, I stopped studying and I picked up a pencil and I started drawing a portrait. And it was a portrait of John Lennon. I'm not sure why, but that's who I decided to draw. I really like John Lennon. I still do. And my roommate at the time, she came and she said, "Oh, I didn't know that you could draw." And I said, "Oh yeah, I forgot that I could draw. I also forgot. I just remember now." And after that, like it was kind of like a little. It was even harder after that for me to stay in law school. Anyways, after that, I saw this opportunity to come to the United States to be a student, like an exchange student. And I came, and ever since I came to the US, to make that decision to come and leave law school to come to be a student here, it was pretty hard for me. I was going to stay here for 1 year, so I had to kind of, talk university. My family was not sure about that, but I decided to do it anyways. But it was the best decision that I ever made in my life because once I was away from that pressure from my family, and all those expectations that they had of me, I was able to see myself a little more clearly and make my own choices that I wanted to make. So when I moved here, I started studying drawing and graphic design and painting. I started working with this company that was doing painting, paint parties, the paint and sip events that were pretty popular back in the day, like in years ago. I was doing that with them. And from that point on, I just feel like that change in my life was a pretty big change in identity that I had to make. But it is kind of similar to the choice that the women in my retreat make to step away. And in that fact that they're stepping away from their usual lives, they're able to see themselves in more clarity. I feel like there's a connection there.
Talk about the self-trust that it takes to do that. Like for you making that decision in your life, but also for women who might be going against maybe what her family wants or maybe what her partner is saying or feeling guilt about her leaving her kids. So talk about the importance of self-trust when you're making a decision like that for your life.
It's very important to have self-trust and to trust your own intuition. I feel like obviously, the decision that I made to leave law school and move here was a way more permanent decision than just going to Bog and spending a week. But to be honest, like I feel like it's just as hard sometimes for some of the women to make that decision. And I understand why, when you have family and you have kids, you have to think about other people that are not only yourself. For me, I was only myself and I was 21, you know what I mean? So it was much easier, I would say, for me. But I always had that voice inside of my head guiding me and telling me, this is what you have to do. And that voice was just so loud that there was no other way that I could have done. The choice had already been made for me almost. And I feel like I would be not as happy as I am now if I had stayed.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think that's kind of the conundrum, right? Is you have to get out of your own life to see kind of what the next step is. And that's really difficult when you're in the throes of raising kids and doing all the things to do that. And then I think when we get to be older or empty nesters or whatever, and that part and that requirement is gone, it's like, oh crap. Now I got to figure it out. It
Yeah.
sounds it sounds like the art piece is really important just in terms of kind of unlocking that thought and really helping people kind of work through this. Why do you think that is? Why do you think creativity and art are so key in making this transition and why do you think it helps the women that you work with so much to kind of fast track that process?
I think creativity bypasses your logic mind in a way. So it kind of accesses your subconscious in a way that I don't know if there's any other activity that could do that. I'm not a therapist, I'm just somebody who has benefited from creativity my whole life in the sense of when it comes to finding myself and finding my identity. I have benefited from creativity, and that's what I teach women to do. But I feel like some some of the things that I realized from my own art, from my own creative process, I wouldn't be able to realize if I wasn't making art, if I was just trying to think logically, right? So I think that bypass of the logical mind is the what creativity brings to the table, when it comes to identity.
And I think also that underneath is where our intuition lives. It's like we have all the layers of expectations and roles and, not wanting to disappoint people. And, and when you do that for years and years and decades, your go-to is automatically, well, what does everybody else need? Not like, well, what do I need? What is my intuition telling me? And so I just think, being able to unlock and really get closer in touch with our intuition is so powerful. When I was in my 40s, I was going through lots of different things and I started going to similar retreats, not necessarily traveling, but I would go to creative type retreats. And I never considered myself a creative person. Like that was one of my limiting beliefs. It's like, well, who are you? You're not creative. You're not artistic. So do you ever see women like that at your retreats who think, oh, well, this isn't going to work for me, or maybe I'm not going to get anything out of this because I'm not creative or artistic? Do you ever see that?
Absolutely. Yes. It's very common, actually. But just the fact that they felt drawn to the retreat, there's something there that attracted them, right? So I know that there is at least like if they're saying they're not creative, they're not artistic, I hear their words, but just the fact that they are there and they came to my retreat, I know there is a crack there that I need to like explore, right? And what I tell the women that come is that we are creating art just for ourselves, right? And it's not for anybody else. We're not trying to sell our paintings. It's just the the process of creating the art is more important than the final piece. So that's what we take the benefit from. It's the process and what that process is going to be teaching us, right? And I have many women that come with, perfectionism or saying that they're not artistic or saying that, they don't know how to make art, and as much as I can, I try to move them away from those limiting beliefs.
So you talked about this idea of making what you're doing more accessible to different people. And I think part of that was this idea, like you said, you were looking at virtual stuff and things around your hometown. I'm sure you thought about this, but I think part of the secret sauce, it sounds like you have, is that women are out their home base and they go over to this beautiful place and they do all these things. So talk a little bit about how you're adjusting kind of that, right, to do the same work you're doing virtually or in some of the other ways that you're planning to do retreats.
Yeah, so like when I do the virtual workshops and as well as the in-person workshop, the impact is not the same as if you are in a different place, away, the whole experience, the whole package is there. It's just a magical experience that you go through, right? So the workshops, as much as I can, I try to translate that what we experienced in the retreats. I try to translate that into the workshops, but just even time wise, right? The workshop at the retreat, we do 3 hours collage in one day, 3 hours poetry the next day. When I do my workshops, I do like 1 hour collage, 1 hour poetry. So it has to be short. But still, the exercise of doing collage and then writing poetry about it is just so consistently revelatory, of your inner world that even when you simplify the process, you can still benefit from it. Obviously, you're not going to get the same benefit as if you were in a magical place like Bali, with a group of women. But as much as I can, I try to bring the experience to people that are doing online or even in person here in Austin. But, it's not the same for sure.
This is the end of our public conversation. And if you want to join us in after hours for the rest of the juicy details, you're going to have to head over to the Patreon. But before we go, we want Anna to tell you about how you can work with her because you're like me. I know that these retreats are sounding pretty fabulous. So Anna, if people want to work with you or they want to join you in one of your retreats, how can they find you?
They can find me on my website, annabeij.com, or they can follow me social media on Instagram, Anna Beij.
Excellent. All right, listeners. Well, we hope you join us over on After Hours on Patreon. But for those of you that are saying goodbye to us right now, we want to say cheers.
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 Well, we've reached the part of the conversation where we probably should stop talking.
But we never do.
We really don't. But hold up. You're probably wondering where the rest of this episode went.
I got you. This is why we have one brain. We've launched Drinks with the Girls 2.0, and it's over on Patreon. We've realized some of our best conversations happen after we've officially wrapped things up.
This is where you'll get the end of the conversation plus early access to all the episodes so you never miss last call.
You'll get the stories we probably shouldn't share, the things we weren't planning to say, the random rabbit holes that somehow become the best part of the conversation.
Basically, all the stuff that happens when the microphones are still on, but we're no longer behaving ourselves, like that ever happens.
And best of all, you'll get in on the ground floor of the rocket ship that is Drinks with the Girls 2.0.
We've been teasing this for a while now, and it's finally here. You'll get to own your very own slice of Drinks with the Girls 2.0 and help us launch this sucker into the stratosphere.
So if you'd like to pull up a seat for one more round or join us for a coffee date, come join us on Patreon. The link is in the show notes.
We'd love to have you, and we're saving you a seat.
Wait, why are you still here? Head over to Patreon and join us now.